Okay, so if we're asked to compare two box plots or any kind of data like that, there's really two things that we're going to look to compare here. So we've got two box plots here, and you really want to compare the averages. So in this case we're using the median because that's what we've got with a box plot. So we're going to compare the Q2s, so we're going to get those for both of our box plots. And then the other thing you always want to compare when you're comparing data, so you compare the averages and then we compare the range. So in this case we're going to use the interquartile range and or the semi-interquartile range. Now we'll go for interquartile range today. Okay, so that's what we're going to be comparing here. We're going to compare the two averages and we're going to compare the two interquartile ranges. Now the work we're going to do next week is going to be on mean and standard deviation, and again when we do the comparison we'll compare the means, which is a type of average, and we'll compare the standard deviations, which is a different type of range. So here the averages that we're comparing are our medians. Now we can read these from our box plots. In this first top box plot, the black one, then the median here is 8. Okay, so Q2 is 8, so I can write that down. And I'm also going to work out the interquartile range, so that's Q3 minus Q1. Q3 is 10, Q1 is 6, so 10 minus 6 is 4. So there's my interquartile range. I'm going to do the same for the second box plot. The median, Q2 is 12, so it is a higher median. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. And then the interquartile range, Q3 minus Q1. Q3 is 14, Q1 is here, so that would be 11. It's halfway between 10 and 12, so 14 minus 11, which is going to give me 3. Okay, now what it can be useful to do is it can be useful to say, right, let's then look at what all of that means. Okay, so Q2 is 8 and Q3 minus Q1 is 4. Now, let's say that this is class A and it's their homework score, and let's say that this is class B, just to give us a little bit of context. So, if we look at our two medians, you would say that class B has got a higher median, okay, because 12 is more than 8. So what we would write, and let me just create a little bit of space for this, is we would say that class B has an higher average, because remember the median's a type of average, higher average score. Now, this is the pathetic bit, remember, you have to say as 12 is greater than 8. And I know we know that, but remember we have to kind of back up our argument. And then I would add in when comparing medians, just so they see what you're doing here. And that's enough for a mark. Okay, so you compare the averages, in this case the medians, you make sure you've got your numerical comparison, and you get a mark. You don't need to say that maybe class B studied harder than class A, anything like that. You're just talking about the mathematical facts. Okay, we then need to talk about the ranges, the spread of the data. Okay, so which data set is more spread out? Where is the data more varied? Varied is a good word, or consistent. So we've got the range. The interquartile range in class A is 4, so it's quite small. There's kind of the majority of pupils are within this kind of 4 mark kind of area. And in B, however, class B, it's only 3. So in class B, the interquartile range is less. Now, what does that mean? Let's have a wee chat about that. So in class B, we would say that class B also has a lower interquartile range, as 3 is less than 4. Remember that numerical comparison that we have to do. Okay, and I would say therefore, you've got two options here. I would say the class has less variety in their scores, or their scores are less varied. Okay. Or you could, alternative phrase is that Class B has a more consistent set of scores. Okay, so we kind of use these two words, the word consistent or the word varied are kind of the words that we can use when we're speaking about the interquartile range, and when we're speaking about the median, we're talking about the higher or lower average. You could of course write this in a different way. You could say something like Class A has a lower average score, and Class A also has a higher interquartile range, so their scores are more varied. So you can, there's different ways to answer the question that are all still correct, just depending on what point of view you take it from. Hopefully that's helped a wee bit, but if you want another example, just let me know.